Hello, and welcome back to another live stream. I just thought I'd hop in here. It's been a couple weeks and see what's been going on with the podcast. Um, it looks like the video is a little laggy. I'm trying some new settings here, so we'll see how that goes. The first thing I wanted to do was to point out some channel updates. One thing I did on the channel was I set all of the videos to have comments moderated by default. There's been some horrible comments placed out there, some racist comments, some bigotry, just stuff that has no place, and so everything is going to be moderated prior to being live. Now, there's also a lot of comments that talk about, the accuracy of the show, which is perfectly fine. If you have more to add to it, that's great. Let's chat about that. If the comment is something as simple as "you suck," then I'm just going to delete it. It's not helpful or beneficial at all. So, if that's pretty much all there is to say about that. If you want to comment, by all means, feel free. But we'll go through a moderation process, and so if you have things to add to the story or points that we want to point out, if there was something that I got wrong in an episode, that's fine. I'm human. This is a one-person show, and I can't spend decades researching things that I do on bi-weekly podcast, or technically, a weekly podcast for years and years, and I still am releasing weekly with the minisodes releasing every other week as well. So yeah, I'm all for that. In fact, I just approved some great insights on the a Tombstone video just the other day. But if it's something where it's just spewing a bunch of hatred and typical internet trolling, then I'm just gonna get rid of that. So just wanted to point that out. When you comment, I read every single comment. May not reply to every single comment because replying can take time, especially for videos that are much older, and I don't remember everything about every single detail. All right, with that said, I thought it'd be fun to go through kind of the editing process. So the most recent episode of Based on a True Story, it covers the movie JFK. And I thought I'd go through that process. So let me switch the screen here, and hopefully the lag won't be that much of an issue for this screen. So this is the program that I use. This is Mixcraft. And the first thing I'll do is I will record the entire thing. So I have videos on YouTube where you can see my recording process. I set up a camera and recorded myself recording audio. And basically, I just record everything onto a single track. So I know this right here, this is the introduction. This is where I set up 2 truths and a lie. And I know that because I do it the same every single time. I give myself plenty of space between these recordings. So I know that, this is the introduction. This is where kind of music will fade off. This begins 2 truths and a lie. And then it goes into the regular episode here. And then I go through the entire thing. And if there's any point, so you'll notice that there's these little edits here. These are actually separate files. And so what I'll do is, as I'm recording, if I make a mistake, so somewhere in here, I made a mistake, and then right here, it looks like with the waveform, probably right here, this part right here is going to be re-recording this sentence and then just continuing on. And so when I come in and edit, I'll just, get rid of that, move this over, and move on, something along those lines. And so that's kind of the initial process. And again, I have videos that walk through in depth, actually walking through the process. So this is more just an overview. But then I'll go through each of these edits. So if I zoom out here, you can see there's a lot of different edits. Each one of these points is going to be an edit point where I need to focus in, find the spot, and I'll leave myself a little marker. Just double click on the timeline here to add a marker and let myself know that when I come to edit this, this break here is not an edit. So there's not a mistake here at the end that I need to get rid of. Basically, I didn't re-record anything. This is going to be a quote. And so what I'll do for a lot of quotes, if I'm quoting something, then I'll, like if I'm quoting a book or I'm quoting an old newspaper or whatever that may be, I'll try to throw a little bit of an effect on my voice, and that way you can tell that this is a quote. It's kind of like, I think of it as kind of an audio version of italicizing. It's not so much of an effect that it's distracting, but it's just enough, hopefully, that you can tell that it's a little bit different. And so you know when the quote begins and the quote ends without me having to say quote, unquote every time. And sometimes I'll do it that way to kind of change it up, but that's kind of how that works. And then, yeah, so I go through the process of editing each of these. And again, here's another one. So here's, over here. This is another no edit, So these are quotes, all the way to the end. And then I give myself plenty of breaks. So I know this is the very end, and then this is going to be the outro. So that's my basic editing process. I also have a specific naming convention that I use. So you'll notice up here in the corner, this is version 1. So version 1 is always what gets recorded. So this is the raw file from actually recording. Now, open up, I'm not going to say the changes I made. So I have version 2 and version 3, and every episode will have at least 3 versions. And so version 1 this is the file that I use to record. I can always go back to that if I ever need to. And sometimes I do for these little markers in particular to know when there were edits or when I need to do that. Version 2 is where I will actually make my edits. So all the edits that I just talked about and making sure that everything is good to go, that's what I'll actually do in version 2. So you can see here, I've actually broken everything out, and you can see there's still edits here. But I know because this is version 2 that I've already gone in and I've cleaned up any of these where I might have made a mistake at the end here. So if I move this over a little bit, you'll see. So here's another part, and this is the same as this right here. So I've already cleaned all of this up. I've already come in here and cleaned all this up so that this entire track right here is essentially the framework for the episode. There's no mistakes in there. Hopefully there's no mistakes in there. And then I'll also break these out onto a separate track. So these are the quotes. If you remember from earlier with the markers, these are the quotes. I'll get rid of the markers as I edit them so I know that they've already been edited. And then on this track, I'll apply a different effect. So let me look at these effects here. So I do have an effect chain that I use for my voice to give it a little more of an airy, kind of warm feeling. So I have 2 different effects here. Open this up. iZotope Mastering Essentials. So this is one, and then this is the other one here that I apply to my voice. And then on the quote, I will apply a different effect. So it looks like in version 2, I still have that same effect applied. You can see this is the same effects chain. But if I hop over to version 3 is where I add the music and finalize the effects. So version 3 is going to be ideally the release version of the episode. So you can see I've added in the music here, the music bed. And then on the quotes here, I have, once I have it laid out, I'll duplicate this track. So one of these will have my regular voice. And so that way, that's why it's not so different from my regular voice. And I actually will take this guy here and bring the volume down on the effect. So there's a little bit of an effect here, an effect chain that I've built out. That's kind of like you're on the phone, kind of a mixture between on the phone and radio. Just kind of using some presets and then coming in here and changing them up a little bit. to give some highs, and I kind of wanted it to sound kind of like I'm kind of coming through on a radio, that kind of feel. But again, not so much that it's really distracting. And so that's why, there's a lot of mids, high mids, take out the bass and the highs. But not so much that it's distracting. And that's why what I'll do is, if I move these out of the way, I'll have the exact same track, and I'll take this, and I will duplicate it and then bring down the volume on both of them. So this one you can see is down about -2 roughly. And then this one will probably be closer to -6. And this is the one that has the effects applied to it, this reading effect. And that's really how I will create the quotes. It's really nothing extravagant. It's something that I've played with and figured that works well. Again, I want it to be something where you can tell that this is a quote, but not necessarily pull away from the story so much, because this is, based on a true story, is not an audio drama. It's not something where things are acted out in that way. It's just being able to tell that something is a quote versus just the regular episode, which I've written, versus the quote. And then at the very end, or at the very beginning, I haven't gone over the music. Let me do that real quick, show you that. So the music is fairly straightforward. You'll probably notice in the last few episodes, I've started using the same theme instead of a different theme for every single episode. That was, quite honestly, something where, for two reasons. One, simplicity, to keep it consistent, but also it helps mitigate costs, so I don't have to pay for more royalty-free music every time. I can pay for this once, and then I've got it, and I'm using the same music every time instead of buying new royalty-free music for every episode. So that's that, and this is kind of the way. So it's always around 5 seconds when this comes in. There's a little cue in the music that I'll edit to, and then how quickly I jump to my voice kind of depends on what I'm saying, and that depends on how it's written. Will determine on how quickly this fades off, and then it fades back in towards the end for kind of the final, and then there's no dead air here. This is still kind of ringing just a little bit, and then I'll start here. And then this is the same track here. This is the same track. It just starts in the middle. And so there's a point in this particular track that kind of starts where it's got more of the orchestra there, more of the band there, more of the instruments there, I should say. And so that's why I'm kicking in here. So that way it sounds a little bit different than the beginning, but it's still the same track. And so that way it still has that consistent feel. And this track here is the very same that I use at the end to stop. And then in the outro, this little break after I say my name, and then start off with the end of the episode. This plays at -25 dB in the background, very, very subtly, all the way up until the very end when it fades in. Now, if you've listened to the podcast before, I'm sure that you already are familiar with how this sounds. I don't think I have. I'm using OBS to stream right now, and I don't think I have my scene set up to where you can actually hear it if I hit play. So with that said, just go listen to the episode, and you'll see how this sounds in the final version. Once this is done, once I have everything edited, I will come up and mix it down to a WAV file. I'm not going to save that. I'll mix it down to the WAV file in the episode, so you can see this here. This would be the WAV file that gets mixed to at 44.1. And then once that's done, I will actually take it over and bring it into Audition to level it out to -16 LUFS, and then export that as an MP3 at 96K. So that is the final file. Hopefully that's the final file. what I do, my process after that is I will then upload that to a private RSS feed that I use for with a couple close friends, including my brother, who will listen to every episode and let me know if they notice any mistakes. And I do that as well. So from here, I'll export it, basically create what hopefully will be the final file, and then upload that to the QA RSS feed and listen to that as I do any other podcast. I'll listen to it in my car, listen to it while I'm going for a walk. I'll listen to it wherever. It kind of comes up on my next podcast listening point. And then if there's any edits that I need to do, then I'll come back in here, and that's when I'll create version 4, version 5, version 6, depending on how many edits I need to do. And then walk through that same process, export to Wave, bring that into Audition, and level it out and export to the final MP3 file. So that's the basic editing process for Based on a True Story here in Mixcraft. Hopefully that kind of helps walk through how that works and all that. If you have any questions, of course, by all means, let me know. And I would be happy to answer them. But with that said, I think that's pretty much going to wrap it up. The only other thing I will mention is I'll give you a peek at what's coming next. So let me pull up my calendar here. All right, so this is the off week for the public episode, but like I said before, I am still releasing weekly. It's just that I will release a full-length regular episode, and then I'll release a mini-sode, and then I'll release a full-length episode, mini-sode. So that's kind of how it goes. So on Monday, there was a mini-sode being released on the movie Wonder Woman. We looked in a full-length episode, we looked at Professor Marston and the Wonder Woman, that movie. And so the mini-sode will be covering Wonder Woman, the actual superhero movie, and looking at some of the historical elements of that being set, in during wartime, World War I, and on that. It was fun to kind of dig into that. Obviously a very, very fictional story, but how much of it could be true or how much of it is that. So we will do that. And then the following week, the next public episode that you'll get will be LBJ. So that was, I thought would be a great episode after the last one. So this past Monday, JFK, the Oliver Stone movie, we covered that and looked at some of the true story behind that movie. And so I thought a great follow-up episode to that would be the movie that covers the man who became president the moment that JFK was assassinated, and that's Lyndon Baines Johnson, or LBJ. It's not associated with the JFK movie at all. It's not a sequel. It's not like there's anything in that way. I just thought that it would be a good follow-up to have JFK and LBJ as back-to-back episodes. So that is going to be the next public release episode. And with that in mind, that is what I'm going to be recording as soon as I get done with this live stream. So I'm going to record that, walk through the process that I just mentioned, where I have version 1, version 2, version 3, go through that process and get that episode all ready to release the following week. And then I will start writing the next episode after that and continue on with the podcast. All right, so thanks for watching. I hope you had a great week. I hope everything hope you're not getting hit with too much winter weather. We've got some winter weather here where I'm based out of in Oklahoma City. But hopefully you're able to stay inside, stay warm. If anything, the winter weather has kind of helped me stay inside, stay warm, and write some episodes. So I've been doing some research and working on that and got LBJ ready to go. So I will get to recording and leave you to the rest of your weekend. Hope you have a great one, and I'll chat with you later. Bye for now.